So this whole thing about the microbiome is absolutely essential. It's one of the biggest fields of research in health sciences right now. And you have something called the gut-brain connection, right? What we're finding out is that a lot of the functions of our brain, specifically our neurotransmitters like serotonin in particular, are not predominantly produced in our brain as a physical organ. They're produced in our gut. 80 to 90% of our serotonin is actually manufactured by bacteria in our gut and then goes through what's called the enteric nervous system. That's the ENS. Autonomic, etc., etc. What we're finding out, which is really interesting, is that we literally have a brain inside of our gut. I like to think of it as my guttural intelligence. And this is why I don't just listen to my heart anymore. And I'm going to make this point, because I hear a lot of people running around like, just listen to your heart. Just listen to your heart. The answers are in your heart. And look, I'm not making fun of it because I understand what you're saying. You're talking about your metaphorical heart, your sacred heart, the heart behind the heart, not the physical organ of the heart. I get what you're talking about, but there's something I tuned into in recent years was that our instinctual intelligence and very much our intuition is largely guttural intelligence. Right? When you get a gut feeling, like, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know why, but I just feel it in my gut. What's that about? What you know what I mean? Like this is where all the pieces start coming together here. Is that if your gut is disturbed, or you have certain organisms that have taken hold, and now they are sending mixed messages to your consciousness. It's possible that a lot of the behaviors, habits, thought forms, emotional triggers, and entanglements and behaviors that we play out on a daily basis may not be ours. It may be possible that our mind has gotten hijacked by opportunistic organisms such as a parasitic type of relationship. And the food habits that we have are not actually ours, but there's something in us that's driving us to get sugar. It's driving us to eat something that we're allergic to. Because it agitates the immune system, and that's not good for us, but that is good for them. Because these organisms thrive on dissonant frequencies. Like there's actually organisms in psychic whatever you want to call it, entities or organisms that actually thrive on negative emotion. That's their fuel source. And so we become like a remote control. And a lot of that is because our gut has become disturbed and corrupted. And this is the whole advent of the probiotic and prebiotic movement. Right? Why is fermented food so important? Well, a lot of it is because of this. Because we need to become in tune with our biology and repopulate that garden, fertilize that garden, water that garden, nurture that garden, give it the nutrients that it needs in the form of food that it needs, give it the fiber that it needs, give it the green superfood nutrients and the alkalinity that it needs, give it the right acids like apple cider vinegar or lemons or limes or citrus fruit that it needs to maintain that pH balance, because everything works in a balance, right? It's not just all alkaline or all acid. There's an 80-20 balance to that, right? Just like any good garden. It's just like, inside out. Same deal. You need sunlight. One of the most powerful antifungal modalities, anti-candida strategies is direct sunlight. That's a really key insight. Laying out in the sun, underneath the sun, on the beach, connected to the earth, is a great antifungal strategy. Really good strategy. So you see how all the pieces of what we're talking about today are starting to kind of come into a little more clear picture? It all works together. And so moving forward on this whole thing, now what we have to talk about
is the genetic modification of our food supply, because this is something I've been driving in a lot lately. It's a reality check that over 75% of our food supply has been contaminated with a compound called glyphosate. Not to mention 77,000 other identifiable chemicals that have been spewed into our environment since 1940. Not to mention all that, but glyphosate in particular is of really interesting note because it connects a lot of other dots. And glyphosate, of course, is the active ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup Ready. There's about 7 other biotoxin chemical, that's what I call it, they're biocides, but biotech companies that are using Roundup now. And this is what people are using on their lawns and everything. Like, this stuff is everywhere, right? And I mean, look at the, first of all, what is this? Like, this looks like spaceship Earth. Like, is this, like, when you think of like a garden, you think about agriculture and what we think of it when you look on that, like, that piece of cheese and you see this dairy cow or the milk and you see this, like, this image of just like this pristine farm, small farm operation. And you're like, oh yeah, that's wholesome. That's what I want to be contributing to. And then you look at this, it's like, whoa, what is going on? I mean, we don't even need to get it. It's obvious, right? We get the whole thing. So, thinking about this in glyphosate in particular, let's talk about what glyphosate is. Again, it's the active ingredient in Roundup. And glyphosate, like many other herbicides, insecticides, etc., it's a biocide. What that means is that it is designed to kill anything that is not genetically modified. Glyphosate is designed to kill any organism that is not genetically modified. The term biocide, when you see side, it basically means homicide or suicide. Pesticide, insecticide, algicide, rodenticide. Right? You get that just as a quick, like, viral side, killing a virus. A biocide is designed to kill biological life. So don't be confused by all this stuff out there of like, well, is genetically modified food, like, is it safe? And just like, I mean, there's a whole litany of history that goes beyond this that would illuminate all those questions. Like Jeffrey Smith, the founder of the Institute for Responsible Technology, and he produced the movie Russian Roulette and Seeds of Deception. He's probably the world's leading anti-GMO activist at this point. Just study his work a little bit and really get a history lesson on this and how the FDA actually allowed glyphosate into our food supply. And the whole thing is just so crazy. It's almost like I can't even go there. I don't even want to go there. It's just like it's the most ridiculous thing ever. What we need to know is what it is, how it interacts with the human body, and what can we do about it. That's really what we need to know, right? And so one of the things about glyphosate too is that it chelates and blocks minerals from the body. One of the main epidemics that we're experiencing in our world is mass level mineral deficiencies. It's been estimated that up to 1/4 of the population suffers from some kind of psychological disorder and mental disorder. 25% of the American population is suffering from some kind of mental or psychological disorder. We talked about magnesium. Now we're talking about full spectrum mineral deficiencies. Do you know what it takes to grow conventional food? It looks like lettuce. It looks like an apple. But it only has maybe 3 or 4 minerals in it. NPK, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. There's 80 plus minerals needed that we know about for proper, human function, proper brain function and metabolic function. Most of the food that we've ever eaten growing up had 4, maybe 5 minerals. That's pretty crazy. I mean, kudos to the human body, right? That's something that nobody can explain. But what we can explain is that, okay, this is the situation we're dealing with, and it's a progressive situation. And so what is the solution to this? Where is this going? How do we combat this? One of the things I want to mention about glyphosate real quick before I move into that particular part of this is that in your microbiome, in your gut, there's something called your microvilli. And your microvilli are like finger-like protrusions at the intestinal wall in the small intestine that pull in the nutrients in food. So for example, when you eat something that's protein-rich, and your body goes through digestive processes to break that down into individual amino acids. Because it's the amino acids that your body needs. It's not the solid protein structure. Okay? But once that breaks down to amino acids, it's the microvilli that pull those in, or pull in the minerals, or pull in the fatty acids, etc., pull in the nutrients. Everyone following me? Now, what we know in rat studies is that glyphosate that's been tested on rats immediately started destroying the microvilli in their digestive system. Now, we know just in human situation, the human studies, that our microvilli is extremely compromised. One of my theories, and I mean, I only call it a theory because it's my own idea, but I'm sure I'm not the only person with this idea. But, we have mass level nutrient absorption issues, right? And we have an epidemic of people that are amino acid deficient and have protein excess disease. Kidney disease is most correlated with excessive animal-based protein that it actually can't digest because there's just too much of it. The kidneys can't filter all that excessive protein. It just doesn't know what to do with it. Basically, it gets backed up, right? And yet those same people have amino acid deficiencies. Isn't that interesting? What's that all about? Well, one thing is they're definitely not absorbing what they think they're trying to get from that food. And you could take that into plant-based diets. I mean, what's the deal with healthy vegan diets and unhealthy vegans? I mean, I've been in this movement for 10 years, and I'm just like, man, I mean, the level of neurosis and the level of psychological imbalances and hyper-aggressive mineral deficiencies in the vegan movement to me is just it is very confusing for a while, because I'm just like, all right, there's very healthy vegans and there's this whole subsect of people that either are not very healthy looking or they're super neurotic and they're very aggressive. And I thought, I was like, man, this just attracts a lot of really disturbed personalities. But then I started looking at it deeper and I realized that's too simple of an explanation. It's actually that they're psychologically impaired. And it's not because the diet, maybe there's things in the diet that need to be, we need to get on a superfood diet. We need to upgrade what we're doing because they might be on a genetically modified vegan diet. Corn, soy, all the wheat, all the conventional wheat, 97 plus, or some, that might not be accurate, but 90+% of the wheat has been sprayed with Roundup. Here's an interesting fact about glyphosate, just as an aside. It's proposed to be a wheat killer, right? That's the whole idea. It's a wheat killer, or it's a weed killer, right? Zachary Bush, Dr. Zach Bush, is one of the world's leading experts on the microbiome and glyphosate. And according to him, 0.001% of glyphosate that's sprayed actually gets on the wheat crop. Where does the rest of it go? It goes in the soil, it goes into the water table. Glyphosate is water soluble, it goes into the air, and then it's spewed out and goes back into the water table that way. It goes into the animals that are drinking the water and eating whatever grains or whatever, even the grass that they're eating on the soil. Glyphosate is water soluble, which basically means it's in the water. Which is another reason we got to get off tap water consciousness. Because it's in the municipal system, right? Now the thing about, I'm just going to make this aside because I know somebody's thinking about this. Well, if it's in the water system, isn't it in spring water? Was anyone thinking this? Well, I'm going to make that point. The answer is possibly, but probably not. Because when you're getting authentic spring water, you're getting it from what's called an underground aquifer. That's where the water actually comes out of. It doesn't come from like the river. That's not what we talk about when we're talking about spring water. And like, you're going to get Giardia. No, it's not. You're not drinking from a river or a stream or a pond. You're going straight to the access point for where the water is coming out of the womb of the earth. And that water has been protected most likely. The only exception would be something like fracking, which is a whole different crazy situation. And that's environmentally dependent where you are. But for the most part, that water has been incubating in those underground aquifers potentially for hundreds to thousands of years and has never seen the atmosphere until that moment it comes out of the spring. Does that make sense? Or you distill the water. You know, that's another option, is that you distill water. I'd rather you distilled spring water than you did tap water, but or reverse osmosis or something. Like that's another option to that. But the basic idea is that it's pretty much everywhere right now. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that we can't eat food? That we can't drink water? That we can't breathe in the air? We can't go in the water? No, that's not what it means. What it means is that we become ultra aware of what we're dealing with, and then we become very solution orientated. That's the key.